Another law student? Go ahead, please, come to one of the mics.
While he's approaching, I'll just say in the matter of faculty support, all you have to do is call.
Can you sing that?
Last year, and they were pretty much said, we support you in private, but we're not willing to say anything publicly. That's the response we got.
You know, I've not been
I
asked.
think the problem is we didn't go outside the law school, so clearly.
I talk about these issues a lot. I think all you have to do is call is the Ghostbusters motto, so I probably shouldn't use it. But, you know, I'm glad to know of your organization and be happy to take part.
Hi, my name is Andrew Smith. I'm an LLM student. I'm from the UK. I just arrived this year, and I can second that I've learned a lot about the torture memories through the classes that I've been taking this semester. And if you hang out in Cafe Seb any lunchtime, people are talking about it and people care about it, so I'd second that. One thing that I wanted to talk about was Professor Adley's comments at the start regarding universal jurisdiction and his idea that the facts are complex, and that's why universal jurisdiction hasn't been succeeded in Europe. That's what I took from his comments. You're shaking your head.
No, go ahead.
Okay. And I think that's a misunderstanding of the facts, because the universal jurisdiction cases that have been brought in Europe have been dismissed either because of prosecutorial discretion or because of immunity arguments. The immunity argument, a good example of a case in point is Belgium tried to prosecute Rumsfeld whilst he was an incumbent minister, and he succeeded on an immunity argument. But Belgium said that if he wasn't an incumbent minister, they wouldn't respect his immunity and they would prosecute him. What happened? The American government came down on Belgium like a ton of bricks and threatened to withdraw funding from NATO projects if they didn't amend their universal jurisdiction statute. What happens? Belgium amends its universal jurisdiction statute. America said those amendments weren't good enough, and the Belgian legislature amend them again. Like, this idea of international accountability has to really take into account the fact that the US government is it's not just legal principles, there's a lot of political weight and the political interests of European countries on that ground. And my second my second issue was with what the panel said about John Lee, that it's complicated because he's not the only person implicated. He's the only person employed by Volt that's implicated.
Yes.
And I think that's a point in itself, but I think it's also contradicts another conclusion the panel reached, which is that why don't we ask those questions when we look at disappearances in South America? Pinochet was not picking people up and dropping them off in the ocean, and we still think that he is accountable. Any widespread human rights abuses necessarily involve the whole operation of a state and all of the facilities a state has at its disposal. So I think it's overly simplistic to say that John Liu isn't single-handedly accountable. I think that he was very high in level of command, and if you look at what most big NGOs call for accountability in cases like Chile, cases like Argentina, they'll be calling for his prosecution for what he did. And Nuremberg did the same for lawyers in Nazi Germany, and that's what I have to say on that point as well.
Okay,
Let me just answer that, because I think both of those points I made originally. I think the Belgian story is very instructive. The question of universal jurisdiction is a complicated one. My major takeaway point here is that these cases, one way or another, an American international influence is being brought to bear on them everywhere, including Spain and other places. My real point was that these things are going to continue, and this is not going to go away. So, you know,
Not if they change their statutes, it's not.
Excuse me?
They're taking away the tools that these people have.
I understand that.
It's not going to continue, and it's not continuing because they disabled the judicial mechanisms internationally and within universal jurisdiction for these crimes to be brought to account. It's not going to carry on.
Well, I guess I disagree with that. Jamil maybe would have a different opinion. Do you want to
No,
answer?
fine.
I want to answer your other point about you, but go ahead.
Just a quick response to that. So you're focused on universal jurisdiction, and I think that you're right. Universal jurisdiction is really tough, in part because the United States is going around the world advocating the narrowing or the extinguishment of universal jurisdiction. But that's not the only mechanism, right? There are a lot of other countries now that are engaged in their own accountability processes, and some of those processes have nothing to do with universal jurisdiction. There's these criminal prosecutions in Germany and Italy. There's the judicial inquiry in the UK. There's a judicial inquiry in Canada, and all of these cases are cases in which, many of them are cases in which these countries are struggling with the responsibility of their own officials for their complicity in the Bush administration's torture program. And I think that as time goes on and more countries struggle with their relatively marginal role in what happened, it's going to be harder, just politically harder, for the United States to say, we're not going to do anything about this.